I'd like to thank all of the board members for taking the time, as well as the executive director and staff for being prepared for the final meeting of the Community Oversight Board for calendar year 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order and to read the appeal statement. Pursuant to the provisions of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County Community Oversight Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law judicial writ. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by this board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. I'll ask the board secretary to confirm that we do have a quorum. Mr. Goddard?
We do in fact have a quorum.
We have a quorum. For all board members, you have received and should be a part of your packet the minutes from the November 21st, 2022 meeting. And now would be the time to note any corrections or modifications. I'm going to give you a few minutes to review that document. Having had opportunity to once again review the minutes from the previous meeting, are there any requested modifications? Are there any required modifications? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the minutes as presented, let it be known by the sign aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Thank you. That moves us to the chair's remarks, and the first thing I'd like to do is to recognize our new board member who's at the table with us, and to give him an opportunity to say some words of introduction. Reverend James Turner. Mr. Turner.
Thank you so much. Name is Reverend James Turner, of course, the pastor of New Hope Baptist Church, former president of IMF. And just glad to be here and to be a part of this organization. We have fought to establish this organization, and so to see it come and now to be a part of it is a great honor, and just ready to serve and be a part of this team. So thank you so much, and looking forward to working with each and every one of you all in the community. God bless.
Thank you, sir. That takes us to the next item on the agenda, which is the Memorandum of Understanding Committee Task Force Update. Our committee chair, board member Drew Goddard, has been our person on point with this particular task. And I trust that the public does understand that while we are in a negotiation, that his report can only reflect general kinds of things that have gone on and no specifics as to any terms and conditions. So, Committee Chair Goddard.
I think since the last meeting, we've had a preliminary meeting to discuss and agree on ground rules for the negotiations. After that, we swapped proposed language changes to the MOU and had a substantive meeting that was the better part of 2 hours. And we are making progress. We are not in agreement on every point. There's a lot more still to discuss, but I'm optimistic about the way things are going and pleased with the reaction we're getting from the police department on most points.
Chairperson Goddard, could you just relate in a general sense just what an MOU does and how the parties rely on that?
Yes, and MOU stands for Memorandum of Understanding. The charter amendment that created this board provided it certain rights with respect to the police department. It left a whole lot unsaid in terms of how the police department and this board are supposed to work together. And the Memorandum of Understanding is an attempt for those two parties to set out how they expect to work together, what they owe each other in the process, things of that nature. There was an original MOU that had to be drafted from scratch. That's a much more difficult job than the task the committee now is tasked with. It has been amended once. This will be the second round of amendments. All those are from looking at things that either circumstances have changed and the language that was originally in the MOU does not address well, or problems have developed that aren't addressed in the MOU. Those types of things from both sides, and that is what we're negotiating now. It is not a binding legal, you're in violation if you don't follow a document, but it's extremely helpful in setting expectations and realizing there will be issues if those expectations as stated in the MOU aren't met.
Thank you, Committee Chair. I'd like to, at this time, to welcome members of our community who have taken the time and the opportunity to engage this board. Our number one purpose here is to serve the will of the people and to be transparent and to force accountability upon those who are members of law enforcement as it relates to how they interact with our community. And so we are absolutely pleased to see you here. We always like to see the place full. We'd love to see more. But for those of you who are here, I tip my hat to you. We're very pleased for you to be here, and we appreciate your support. That takes us to the executive director's, Attorney Yoon.
I guess a question, point of order, is the public comment that was scheduled for number 5, I know that we have at least 2, one of whom is not part of the complaints that are of today's agenda. I didn't know if that one was supposed to be taken up first or if that was bifurcated for the end.
Thank you, Attorney Yoon. You are absolutely correct. And let's say that now is the time for public comment. And how many? You say a couple of folks have signed up for public comment?
One of whom is, I guess, a subject in one of the complaints. So I think that one would be appropriate to wait until after the complaint PRR is heard. But the other one has nothing to do with either of the 2 on the agenda. So she's actually a returning person from a previous complaint. But we had follow-up from the chief of police.
Okay, Board Member Hildreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If memory serves, one of the reasons why we created this twofold shot at public comment is we realize that sometimes our meetings go on long when we're down in the detail and trying to pay attention to them. But your time is precious and you took off to get here and can't wait till the end of a 3-hour meeting sometimes. So we've created a public comment section, I believe, Mr. Chair, early in the meeting, so those who came out to speak can sign up and speak at that time. And then those who want to respond to the work that they see in this meeting would have another time. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
So now is the time for public comment if it does not relate to a case that we will review today. Who is present for public comment? Please come forward. Please state your name.
My name is Diana Jenkins Brown, and I appeared before this board, I would say it was June last year, about my complaint that the board assigned CC 2021-005. This was about our hit and run accident that occurred on May 16th, 2020. After I appeared before your board, I stayed in contact with Mr. Vernon Johnson. I kept checking and checking. I said, after the board ruled, you gave your findings, you suggested different things. I asked Mr. Johnson, has it appeared before the police chief? I stayed on it. So finally, I guess about 2 or 3 months back, Mr. Johnson said someone from the police department came and picked it up, and they were taking it to the police chief. I stayed behind it. I told Mr. Johnson from the beginning, I do not give up. Just because somebody says something, I'm going to follow through. As I stated, I'm educated, I have knowledge, and I know how to research. Mr. Johnson told me this week, the police chief responded. Instead of him listening to what your board said, your board found the same things that we found. When I was here last time, there was another case that was right before mine. Someone said, who's to follow up with the police chief? Who's to make sure that what the board decides, that he takes action on it? That was going to be me. I was not going to give up. When I got that report Monday, you talking about someone was angry. I listened to Mr. Johnson say what the findings were. He said he spoke with Daniel Young, the attorney, and I listened to everything he said. I said, no. He said, the chief said, regardless of what the board said, he wasn't going to take action. First of all, the first officer, he was allowed to retire. He left, didn't do anything. That would be Officer Armstrong. He left, and he was allowed to retire. Well, guess what? The second officer has now retired. So I told him, no way. What is the purpose of this board? I value this board, for sure. Nobody else had confidence. Everybody ran me down and told me, why do you believe in them? They're not going to do anything. I said, yes. You have judges. You have retired police officers on the same committee. They ruled. They found them guilty. I told Mr. Young today, I want to go before that board again. I want to see the police chief. I called the mayor's office. I called the governor's office. I called the news media. I told them about this meeting today. I said, you need to be here today if you can get somebody here. If not, pull it up. I was here in June. This board is being devalued. Nobody believes in them because they didn't just listen to what I had to say. You're neutral people. So you did your own investigation. Mr. Vernon Johnson did that. Mr. Daniel Young, the lead attorney, looked at it. I came here, listened to what you had to say. Then it goes before the police chief. And again, who's policing the police? Who is the citizen? What value? I know you're understaffed because it took 15 months on my case when I brought it here. But I didn't give up. I hung in there. I called, and I stayed on it. Again, I came before you in June. I think that was last year. I still stayed with Mr. Vernon Johnson. So if the chief is just not going to listen to this board who is neutral people, then just like what happened with Mr. Floyd, everybody needs to know about it. It's time to take it to the public. The public needs to hear this. There's no justice. There's no justice. The police department is going to rule regardless. That was a hit and run. They almost killed us. They almost killed myself, my husband, and my 2 grandchildren. One has autism that it affected him. He'll never be the same. We had how many witnesses? We had about 15, 20 witnesses. That Officer Armstrong refused to take our witnesses' statements. He refused to do it. Your boy the investigator pulled those phone calls. She was holding up at Walmart. Nobody went to Walmart to get her. If they had got her, we wouldn't be here today. We definitely, again, justice. No matter what the race, no matter that. Those two police officers were white. We're black. Just like George Floyd, once the public got a hold to it, they got some justice. Just like you need more funding. You definitely need more funding, because if you had more funding, maybe they would value this board more. But it sounds like to me, I don't believe the police chief said that. You have any proof that the police chief said that? I bet you the person who worked up under him signed that. I think he needs to hear it. He needs to hear what I have to say. That's why I contacted the governor's office and the mayors and the news media. It's time something get done. We were the victims, treated like we caused that wreck. Those officers did not do us justice. You said it in the meeting. They failed us. The system failed us. We could have died. We could have died. Our lives are valued. And again, I'm not uneducated. We're not poor. But we have rights. We have rights. And so that's why I'm here today. Justice has to take place. The chief cannot keep dismissing stuff. From what I heard, he dismisses any cases y'all turn over. Most of them, maybe one makes it, he does something. You brought that up in the last meeting. You brought it up. So that doesn't make any sense to me. So what is it going to take? A lot more people to get killed? Or is it, what is it going to take? Because they devalue your boy, that's for sure. Everybody ran your boy down. Everybody did. Not me. I have faith. I push forward. I keep saying, no. I contacted everybody. Church members, nobody had faith that something was going to happen. But you know what? I have faith. I have God. I have faith. He's the one who brought me to this board when Officer Armstrong didn't do what he's supposed to do. That everything that's on that paper is not true. He never investigated our case. He never. If you had looked at everything, you wouldn't have found them guilty. Your board found them guilty. You have officers who said just because they retired, that doesn't mean that anything be done. But then now the second officer has retired. What do you say about that? You don't blame him. If I was a police officer, I retired too. You can't bring, hey, I retired and you investigated me. I know ain't nothing gonna happen to me. So, but like again, it's time that the public knows about this. There needs to be some justice. There needs to be some answer. And you need to be valued. You are valued. I value you, that's for sure. I definitely value you. But the public doesn't value you because the police still is coming in and policing themselves. You're not policing them. They're still policing themselves. So, again, I say to you, I hope that the governor's office gets back with me or the mayor's office. I told them I would go on television proudly. Same thing I'm telling you, I'll tell it to the general public because I'm not afraid. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And now something needs to take place. And it has to take place. Or you'll keep getting treated like this. Nobody's going to come to you and bring their cases to you if they think that this is going to happen. Again, you're innocent. You didn't know nothing about our case. Nothing. So you didn't devalue the police and you didn't devalue us. But again, the chief, as I told the attorney, he owes us apology. That's what I think. I think he should have been calling us and saying, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, I'm so sorry what happened to y'all. I'm so sorry. But no, you don't get that. It's just, he said he's not going to do nothing. He said this was done. That's not right. But again, the news media contact me. Channel 5 said they're going to pull it up tomorrow, and then they're going to pull up the June meeting also. I told them, you're welcome. And again, I invite the governor's office and the mayor's office. They need to hear about this. And I thank you. I thank you for listening to me. Justice is justice. we're just as good as the policemen. All policemen are not bad. I tell anybody, they tell me, don't say that I said. They're not all bad. But is it equal? Is it equal justice? No, it is not. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. That takes us to the Executive Director's report. Director Fitcher.
I'm going to talk about this report, and then I do have some things to say about public perception. I think that we would be remiss to not talk about what is happening here in this whole year collectively throughout the last 12 months. So we have hired a new Assistant Director, Attorney David Kiley. He will start his employment with the COB on December the 19th. I'm pleased to have him here. Okay, thank you. We will also begin interviewing candidates for the Research Analyst 1, the Digital Evidence Technician, and Data Analyst, and hopefully get another investigator hired before the end of the year, or if not, at the beginning of the top of 2023. Our staff continues to have trainings. We had, of course, our last meeting was just almost, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So we've had many meetings still. I did meet with the MOB budget team to have initial discussions regarding the fiscal year 2024 budget needs, and I'll come back to that. And then I've also attended the department head meeting with other department heads and elected officials. We continue to do community outreach as much as we can. I did a presentation for the IMF. Our social worker's doing some training tomorrow. She and our community liaison went out throughout this neighborhood, saturated the neighborhood with flyers to get more people to this meeting and talk to them about the COB, invite them out. They talked to residents, the faith community, and businesses. I attended the Metro Council's public hearing related to automated license plate readers. And I asked Metro Council to defer the approval for 2 meetings until they had the opportunity to see MMPD's policies and SOPs, the vendors, and expected costs related to the implementation of the LPR pilot program. That was language that was housed inside of the legislation. And those things did not happen. So they moved forward on a pilot program without having any knowledge of MMPD's policies related to LPRs. They don't know who the vendors are. There was 3 vendors, I think, vying for the contract. We don't know what that looks like, how much the cost will be for the city. And so I wanted to make certain that we express that. Number one, that the hearing happened so quickly that there wasn't a whole lot of time to talk about this, and that delaying the meeting for 2 additional meetings was not going to hinder the progress that they have. It was going to, I think, allow the public to have more input into what was happening. They also removed some language out of the legislation, which was that vendors could give a demonstration of how the LPRs worked. I think that there's still people in our community who don't know what license plate readers are and how they work. There was a lot of misinformation being spouted out, saying that the license plate reader only captures the numbers on the license plate tag. When I sat in a meeting with Flock Safety, and the creator of it said that it also captures the whole entire back, and also the back of the vehicle, which means bumper stickers and things of that nature, and that it also could capture even up to the back window. So it would be able to determine whether or not there was 1 person, 2 people in the vehicle. So I just believe that the public just needs to be educated on what license plate readers can do. And if you've got multiple vendors, then each vendor has a different technology and how that operates. And so I just wanted to express that on behalf of the board to the Metro Council. We're going to have our next board meeting next month. It's going to be probably at the Metro Howard office building. We continue to do research. Our research analyst is still working on the use of force report. We have multiple reports out, including one on sexual harassment, misconduct. We heard from Ms. McLean at our last meeting. So we're working on getting some documentation and that prepared on what that looks like and how the department could implement some type of policies related to sexual misconduct complaints. We received only one complaint since the last board meeting in November. We received a total of 14 non-complaint calls for service since our last board meeting on November the 19th. Our investigators have submitted 8 requests for public records. I'm going to talk about 2 proposed resolutions today, and hopefully we'll get through those in a timely fashion, but addressing the needs of the complainants in there. We talked about the MOU negotiation meeting. I will say that who was at that meeting was Committee Chair Attorney Drew Goddard, myself, and Legal Advisor Attorney Daniel Yoon. Metro Legal had Attorney Wally Dietz, Attorney Laura Fox, and Attorney Cindy Gross. And MMPD was represented by Assistant Chief Mike Hagar, Captain Chris Gilder, and someone from the Mayor's Office, Tom Jerkovich. I attended a use of force board hearing on Thursday, December the 10th at the Midtown Hills Precinct. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this move to JIS, which is Justice Integration Systems. As I have brought up to the board on multiple occasions, the experience that we're having with our internal case management system, which is IA Pro. IA Pro historically is a police department's case management system. It was created for that. It is the lead in what police officers have used, I guess, over the last 20 to 30 years. Mark may know better, Mr. Holloway, but I know Mark for certain. It's been what departments have used. It is a system that I believe is really created for police personnel. There is other systems out there, not many, because civilian oversight hasn't necessarily been on the forefront of case management systems. And some civilian oversight departments do use IA Pro because that was the only thing that was out and available. There are some new systems, new innovative and progressive technology that assist with how we keep track of our cases. It's geared towards complainants being able to have a tracking number, being able to track the progress of their complaint. It does, it changes the language for those who may not speak English. It does the translation for them on their document. And so I have reached out to JIS because initially when I reached out to Metro ITS to tell them that this is what we were interested in, we had met the developer of some new technology regarding this complaint process and case management system. And what I was told by the director of Metro ITS was that they don't have the capacity to do that. And so I reached out to the JIS department, which is another criminal justice platform and another IT platform in our city called the Justice Integration System. And I had a meeting with their committee and expressed to them what it is that we were wanting to do and how this software would be beneficial to the board and to the MNCO. And so we have been going back and forth with this for many months, since earlier in the year. And I got a response back from the committee chair, who is now the Honorable Judge Dalton. And she said that she sends thanks for the JIS department. And they voted in approval of the Community Oversight Board joining the JIS. However, the substantial data needs excuse me, thank you, pose a significant problem because JIS does not have currently stored backup or managed body-worn camera footage or any comparable size data for Metro departments. It does not have the infrastructure nor capacity to do that. JIS does not have the necessary resources to take on that kind of support. And they offered 2 different options. The first option is the option that we presented to JIS, which was that all body-worn camera footage be stored and managed in a cloud environment by the vendor, which, just for the public to know, that is a best practice to store it in evidence.cloud or some other form of secured, a cloud-based security system. So she said that this would alleviate any need for JIS to build and license the significant infrastructure required to house, manage, and back up the data on the premise. That it would be our responsibility to gain those permissions to store that data in a cloud environment, and also get the funding to be able to do that. That is exactly what the case management system that I had presented to the board, which was Civil Incorporated, that is a cloud-based, has all the credentials that it's supposed to have in order to store very sensitive information, very confidential information in the cloud. And so what I've learned over the past 6 months is that, you know, as this is new technology, other police departments across the country are using it, as well as civilian oversight boards. And so, what has happened is because we are now on the back end of a new product, it will cost us more money in order to move forward. But not so much so that it's not, you know, that we can't do it, just more than what we initially had as a new particular technology on the field. The other option was the same thing that we're not really interested in, and that is to have, you know, this information stored on servers and things of that nature, which is what the police department does now currently. And like I said earlier, that is not a best practice, and I don't think it's something that we're interested in doing. So I would like to move forward on that information, find out who these permissions come from, and keep you abreast of what the next steps are in that regard. And also, we have talked about, I think throughout this time for the last year, we've talked about MNCO office space and how we have outgrown our current office space. I continue to raise that concern with the administration. So I recently received it. I did it with Mr. Bunton. I also raised it with the person that came in as the new property director, Mr. Abraham Westcott. And we had multiple conversations. He came to our office space, checked it out. We also I called general services to come and look and see if there was some other way that we could expand our space by maybe creating cubicles or something of that nature. That did not happen because we just don't have the infrastructure to build out and have office cubicles. So we have something else on the horizon, which possibly putting more than one person in an office space because we just are at full capacity. I've brought to your attention on multiple occasions the fact that what I've heard from citizens who come to our office is that, number one, there's no parking, and we're in downtown Nashville on 2nd Avenue. The second thing I've heard is there's no anonymity, that as they come into our office space and they get on the elevator, sometimes they have pending criminal charges or pending court cases, and they are sometimes in the elevator with prosecutors who are prosecuting them. They also sometimes encounter police officers. And so it just is becoming more of a trigger for those who have contacted us and talked to us about it. And so moving, I think, is the only issue that will alleviate those troubles that they're experiencing. So I received an email from a special projects manager, Metro Government, Beth Williams, and she was outlining their current state of process. What I've been told is that there's other departments that have to move, that the leases will not go forward, and so that they have prioritized them. I laid out a plan that I thought would be, helpful with, maybe having someone else absorb our space, immediately, who is not affected by those things I just mentioned, and then putting us on the priority list since those people have to be moved out. And then that would not have us breaking a lease. Never heard back about that. She stated that the Metro has engaged consultants, Ernst & Young, to assist with developing a comprehensive space master plan for the efficient and effective use and management of Metro's real estate portfolio, whatever that means. So I'm supposed to meet with them tomorrow morning to discuss, what the needs of our office is. I mean, we've done this multiple times already, so I'm hoping that they have some really viable options and solutions for us, and I'll keep you posted on that. As we said a little earlier, I heard someone say that they're going to be rolling off. We will have 3 board vacancies. We have Ms. Phyllis Hildreth, Sean Witzel, and Mark Wynn. Their service on this board will end January 31st, 2023, unless they decide to stay on. Ms. Hildreth is the mayor's nominee. Sean Witzel and Mr. Nguyen are both community nominees. And so if someone is interested in applying, you should do that pretty quickly once it goes out. I asked Attorney Yoon to contact the vice mayor and the Metro clerk, and he did that. So they are aware that those vacancies will be coming forth, and hopefully they will start that process and be prepared to go ahead and get that on the calendar so we don't have, a long delay with vacancies for the month of February. And so I believe in last month's meeting, there was some talk about the nominations committee. And Attorney Yoon, did you want to say anything about that?
No, I sent out an email. There's just a process that needs to take place before we can submit a slate of nominees. We've done it that way before. We've also done it not that way before. And I think the preference is let's do it that way. So to do that, we need to have a meeting before January 31st so that the incoming board members aren't sort of without leadership on that first meeting.
And then for the year-end recap, I think just really, there wasn't a whole lot. We are going to have a annual report that will come out. So I didn't want to say and get into a lot of things, but one of the things that we noticed was a trend, and we have been sending you the report, the agent report from investigations, as well as the report on the chief's response to those. And so we listened to what Mr. Brown had to say in regards to what I heard her say is that the public has lost confidence in our process. It really concerns me that that's the case because I believe that we've worked really, really hard to try to build relationship with the community. We have no control over what the chief does in regard to his response. But what I heard today was that the fact that when we talk about morale within the police department, what I hear is a public saying that they're losing morale as well. In our process, they're concerned that the chief gets these particular complaints, and as we all have had this discussion, that he has continuously not necessarily taken the board's responses and recommendations and to heart and not really did much with them. And so we are trying to remedy that through our MOU process, but at the same time, this is a city that is relying on not only us, but relying on our chief of police and the police department to have trust and accountability and transparency. And what that looks like to us may be different than what it looks like to the chief of police. And so I'm just concerned that we are here again, we've been up and running for almost 4 years, and that we have people coming, and what I heard Ms. Brown say was that people in the community have lost confidence in our ability to do this work. And so that concerns me. I had a whole lot more to say in regards to our year-end recap, but the biggest thing is that people who have brought their complaints to us, who have went through that long process with us while we're trying to build out, we had all of these things that happened. I'm not making excuses for my team either. We have to hold each other accountable to get this work done and get it done timely. And so, but I will say, we're working with 3 investigators. At one point, we only had 2. And so I think that as we move into the new year, we've learned from some of our mistakes. We also know that a lot of this has to do with budgeting. And so budgeting is important. But what I will say is that we have to work in some way to get either the mayor's office involved, get the chief of police to one of these meetings, and let him hear what the public is saying about his responses. Because there's nothing that we can do about the responses except for continue to raise the concern about them. But meeting after meeting, what we hear is people come and tell us what their experience was, and then they still don't get any relief on that end when it goes to him. And so I'm going to conclude my executive director's report. I want to thank all of you for your dedicated service to this board for this year, and those who are new, I appreciate you being here. This work is important. It's important to me. It's important to our public. I'm appreciative that they're here today. I'm appreciative that all of you dedicate your time, because it's a lot of time. This takes a lot of time. And so, this work is not easy work, but it is rewarding work. And so I'm very, very excited about 2023 and the work that we're going to do for the Nashville community. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Before we get to questions for the executive director on her report, I want to remind the community and those listening that public comment is not subject to debate or to a vote. So some might be wondering why we just didn't take up the issue at that point, and that is because the rules don't allow us to do that. It may be something that we agendize for a future meeting, but I wanted everyone to be aware of why we were somewhat silent in response to that presentation. All right, now at this point, are there any questions for the executive director on any of the points that she made in her report? Questions for the executive director? Board Member Goddard?
I have two suggestions and a comment. First, on the LPR readers and not have any policy, procedure, whatever else yet from the police department, if they have one, if they have a draft, that should be a public record, unless there's an exception I'm not aware of. So I would suggest if we haven't, that we ask the chief of police right away and file a formal request if we need to for their most current draft of any policy, procedures, whatever related to license plate readers. Mr. Gavin, Crowell Williamson, do you know if we asked for that before, either of you?
Yeah, I asked for that. They said they did not have that.
They don't have.
That they don't have any draft, which I found to be incredible. And the fact that this has been legislation that was in February went out. And so, yeah, they said that they did not have a draft at this point.
Okay, well, I defer to you, maybe consider filing a public records request. That tends to get taken a lot more seriously sometimes than questioned. Shouldn't be the case, don't know if it is.
Come forward, Commander Laura, MNPD. How are you today? Wonderful. Do you have something to add?
Good evening. So on the LPRs, just want to kind of clear up a little bit on that. So the LPR, first of all, the pilot, and this is information that I want to get to you from the department, is it's about a month out before this 6-month pilot program goes live. So we still have about a month, sometime in January at the earliest is when this is going to go out. This is a pilot program, so the LPR policy is not a final policy. During this pilot period, the department has started working to put something together. Now, one of the things when I spoke to Director Fitchard regarding her request was they had the public hearing on Tuesday, and so that public hearing did have a lot of hold a lot of weight of how we're going to move forward. If that public hearing went one direction, we wouldn't have an LPR program, pilot program, and so we wanted to make sure that everything moved forward before any type of policy is put out. Secondly, the policy, during this pilot period, the department will monitor and evaluate every aspect of the program and make any changes needed to the policy. The policy is going to be drafted and it's going to be put on a website that we're going to do. It's going to be put out to the public. So I want to let you know that whatever policy is created, which is, again, it's a pilot policy, will be put out on a website so that the public is able to view it, as well as the board. If you have any specific things you would like to see in the policy, we would be more than happy to, the department would be more than happy to review that to implement. But it's just want to make clear that the policy is going to be largely consistent of incorporating the provisions in the LPR ordinance set in the Metro Code, which is 13.08.080, 13.08.080, which is deployment of surveillance or electronic data gathering devices onto public rights of way requires Metropolitan Council approval. So it's a code that's in the Metro Government Code that kind of gives us the framework of what we're going to use when we're creating this policy. We're going to be within that framework. This code gives us the framework to work within when creating this policy to make sure that we are staying within the intended purpose of the technology and working within the boundaries of the laws set forth by the Metro government and any state laws governing this technology as well. We are also in the early procurement process, again, as the director said. We don't know who the vendors are going to be, but once we do get that information, if procurement allows us to, we will put that information out to the public as well, but that's not something that we can do without their approval. And so again, there's a policy being created. We were waiting to do anything until that vote was on Tuesday, because if we don't have a vote, we don't have a policy. And so now that that vote has come, and we're starting to move forward. The policy is being created. Again, we're going to have a website where everybody's going to see this policy, and as the pilot program for 6 months goes on, just like anything else, we're going to look at the policy and see if we need to change things. If there's something that you say, hey, this needs to be changed, that we're going to look into those things as well to change the policy and make it conform to what is needed as well. So if this becomes a permanent technology that we're going to be using, we have the correct policy in place to govern it. So again, I don't want you to think that we just, blew it off and say we don't want to give it to you, but there was a specific reason why they did not give it to you right away, was because, again, they were waiting for this Tuesday voting before we move forward with that policy. I don't know if you have any questions on that.
Board members,
If I may.
questions? Board Member Cotton.
Is there a draft policy for unofficial, official?
There is a policy that's being drafted right now. There is no official draft. They are working on it. I guess once there is a draft that is able to be put out in the public, because they're still working on it. Once the draft is complete, then we can.
I understand that's the police department's preference. If there is a draft, however unofficial, however not finished, it's a public record, in my understanding. I've dealt with public records law. I may be wrong, but I don't think I am. And I would defer to Executive Director Fitchard whether we make a request for that. If we do we need to make a formal records request, or will it be treated as such?
So with this one, what I would do is, if I would probably send it, you can send the request to me and I can forward it. I'm not exactly sure how this would work, with, if it does need to be done formally through records, or if it's something that is sent to the executive staff. So I can find out and I can let you know exactly the best way to do that, so we can go ahead and give you the opportunity.
If you give Executive Fitchard on that.
Sure.
And I defer to her. My concern is that we be able to plug in as early, this board staff, be able to plug in as early as possible in this, and appreciating how unofficial a draft may be, it still may be helpful, but again, I defer. Second recommendation I've got, or suggestion I've got, be better, it sounded like a broken record, is.
I'm sorry, Board Member, is it on the same issue?
No, I'm sorry, it is not.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I saw Board Member Hilton.
Thank you.
You're fine, you're fine.
Good evening, Commander Laura.
Good evening, Dr. Hildreth.
And here we are again. Of course it feels as if the police department blew us off. Everybody had full notice that this was an issue of high importance, high concern to all members of this community. This train has been moving down the track apace for several months. And regardless of the outcome of the meeting on Tuesday, it seems that most of us would anticipate that there was a reasonable probability that if the pilot wasn't approved last Tuesday, it would still be. So the statement that we didn't do it because we didn't know if there was going to be a pilot feels more than disingenuous. It feels insulting. Please don't do that to us. Don't do that with us. We have been trying together to move this difficult conversation past the point of petty disrespect. So with that said, we anxiously await any kind of unformed, nascent draft that can be shared professionally with Director Fitchard and her staff, so that we can consensually and respectfully respond to the request that you made at the beginning of your statement, that if we had any ideas of what we'd like included, that we can do that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Board Member Turner.
I guess I heard, of course, thank you for coming, but I think I heard that the draft or working draft, excuse me, will be put out to the public on the website. And in my personal opinion, I don't think that is sufficient for the community. If they do not know that that is on the website. So the question would be, what other community engagement are you going to do, or publicity to let the public know that this draft is working, is out, so they can look at it. And if they can't, what are the, again, community engagement to say, to have those discussions, to educate the public in the community about the policy that is, I guess, working in progress.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the question. I don't have that specific information right now because I don't know how the department is going to move forward on getting that information out that way. But I know that the department does have a plan on how to move it out. It may be something through our PIO office. It may be through different means, but there is going to be something in place to let the public know that this is out there, that it is available to them, and that they'll be able to have whatever links or whatever they need so that they can get to that actual policy and be able to review it on their own. And then whatever the department decides on, if there's any feedback that needs to be, an area to have feedback, whatever it is, that would all be there once everything's put out for the public. So again, I don't want to give you an exact answer because I don't have that, but I know that there is plans to make sure that everything gets done correctly so the public does know exactly where the policy is, how to find it, and how to review it. Thank you, sir.
Follow-up.
I guess, same issue that I would suggest or recommend, I guess, to the board that we, once the policy out, got this, again, I don't think it's gonna be sufficient waiting to hear that when the document is out, that we can see, if we can, that we can take on this, even though it's their responsibility to see what we can do. And that's a suggestion to get it out to the public, whether during our meetings or have a separate type of community engagement. So I'll leave it at that.
And that was in the form of a recommendation to staff, and I would like for that to be so noted. I saw Board Member Nguyen.
Thank you, Commander Laura. And you may not be able to answer this question, but let me start off by saying this. Accountability with law enforcement around the country also means including stakeholders in policy development on critical issues as to avoid unintended impacts on the public. This seems to be one of those times when a method used by the police is not trusted by the public, a lot of the public. Some it is, some it's not. What is the hesitation, is there any, including stakeholders like members of this board or the director, to be part of the policy development early on, so as to tell the public, we are looking at this method to make sure it's not intrusive to you, because we've been involved in the policy development to begin with. And again, it may not be a question you can answer, but I would like to know from the command staff, and I'm sure this board would too, why this board has got this critical issue of oversight, why it's not included in the policy development process. Is the prosecutor involved in this policy development process? Is anyone else involved? But especially for this board that has to answer to the public about their mistrust of a method that they think, again, is intrusive, I think we deserve an answer about why we're not included in the policy process. Thank you.
Commander Laura, can you address those questions?
I can't address all of them, but I can tell you again, when we look at, as you're creating this policy, there are guidelines that we're following as well. So there's something that is in place through the Metro codes and state laws of what we have to stay within. So we understand that there are boundaries and things that we can't go out of. We are building that policy around that or within those boundaries. If you read what your legislators have put out into those laws, you'll see what the boundaries are. And so I just want to make sure that the community knows, as well as the board, that we're not creating a policy out of thin air. We are actually taking what we've been given and using that to start to create the basis. So that is the foundation of our policy. Once this is done, this is pilot. That's why it's a pilot policy. It's not what's going to be out there for good. If this becomes a permanent technology that is being able to be utilized by the police department, that 6-month pilot program is going to be used to identify any deficiencies in the policy, and then that's when we'll be able to change them.
Commander Laura, would you please ask the chief of police, let them know that we're requesting to be included in the development of the draft policy, and bring us back an answer to that question as soon as you possibly can to staff. That is our request. okay, that the COB and or its staff be included in the development of the draft policy. We know how to stay within statutes and guidelines and regulations. We understand what that task is like. It's a great opportunity for the police, for MMPD, to demonstrate its transparency in the early stage of development of what is really has been a pretty tough, controversial community issue. Could you do that for me,
Yes,
please?
sir, I can do that.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Board Member Holloway.
First of all, we talked about how do we inform the public. And we inform the public the same way we inform them about building a new stadium. We can move from one section of town, having community meeting, explaining the policy and how this thing will work. So if something that we're really interested in, something that we really want the people to know, we do just like we do the stadium. And announce it that we're gonna be in this part of town one day, another part, section of town, another part of the day. That's my comment on that. But what I really want to comment on secondly is the complaint. Sorry, the lady left soon, but it's really not over for her. It depends on how she pursue this. The weight of our investigation can carry a whole lot of weight in a civil court. They can compare our investigation to the police department report, and who knows how they may view this. Our finding may be more than 50% as compared to the police, a heavier weight than the police department. So it depends on how she want to pursue it or who she got to represent her. It's not over. Even though those guys retired, it's still not over. They committed an act and they should be held accountable.
Thank you. Board Member Witzel.
Well, I was going to speak to what was just last said about the comments that were made from Ms. Brown, and not specifically about those comments, but the public perception piece. And this may come out in the form of a question to Commander Laura, but just some thoughts that I was thinking about is when to be on this board, you have to spend 13, 14 weeks in the police academy, community, what's it called? Citizens Police Academy. And so, and that's probably the most interaction that I've ever had consistently with police officers. And talking to Chief Drake and any other officer that we encountered, one of the things that we heard a lot, or at least I heard a lot, was, thank you for your service. We appreciate, the work you do on the board, et cetera. And I don't know if people personally feel like, if that's something that people personally feel, or if it's something they just have to say. But it seems that if those things were true, then it would be, then the chief and all police officers would care about how the public perceives us, because the idea is that we're working together with the police department to offer what the community or what this city, what the people said they wanted. So it's not supposed to be like a us versus them type of thing. It's supposed to be us working together. And I'm just interested to know if Chief Drake would respond to what he heard Ms. Brown say about how the public perceives us, and if he cares about that, and if he cares about that, what is he going to do on his end to change what that public perception is? Because so the way I see it is, if the public seeing us work together instills more confidence in our board, but also instills more confidence in the police department. So I'm curious to know, like, a direct response, if we could get a direct response from him as it relates to those comments that Ms. Brown made about the public losing confidence in the COB. It seems like that would be something that he would want to prevent.
I appreciate your comments, and I will take that information back to the department. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Any further comments on this discussion? We still have yet to finish with the entire executive director's report response. So this is just one segment. I saw Board Member Spencer.
Thank you. Respectfully, I think that when we're talking about perception from our discussion today, it feels that from the police department side, the perception of this board and of this body is one that views us almost as unnecessary and has little value for what the entire purpose of this board, for what the people voted for this board to be. I find the reasoning incredibly insufficient to say that for this whole topic of license plate readers and the legislation around it that we have talked about for months, that ended up being on council agendas for over a year. Afterwards, then approved, and then was coming up for a pilot vote, that the department decided that they can create their own policy without addressing and without engaging the body that is a part of Metro government that is supposed to provide oversight for the department. As fellow board members have said, we are tied together. It is incredibly disingenuous, as Dr. Hildreth has said, to think that you can just go about doing everything else without including us. I think when it comes into perception, again, I want to really hound on what the police department's perception of us seems to be. People voted for this body to be able to provide that accountability and to provide that kind of oversight because there was not that trust in the department. And so for us to do our jobs, the police department has to do their jobs and let us in. And so I just feel very furious that we can spend so much time going around trying to delve into the minutia of everything when the obvious real world answer would be to just involve us in the conversation in the first place. We should not be having to request being involved in a policy draft, a draft of nonetheless. And then also the reasoning that, we'll fix it on later, I think is just absolutely reckless. If that's the department's reasoning, that we know our guidelines, we'll fix them later, as we go on. I understand, there is the progression of research, of the progression of all things turn out a different way, but to not do so with the body that's supposed to be working with you on policies like that, it feels absolutely reckless, and it seems almost as a danger to the public. That is what it feels, and that's what it seems to me. Because if you can't be transparent with us, how are you being transparent with everybody else? We are the ones you're supposed to be transparent with the most. We work tandem together. It doesn't make any sense. I can't fully understand how we can go through all this fussing and fighting for so long and then still say that we are really, truly in agreement and truly working together. That's not the perception that I'm getting, and by the actions of the department, that's not what I'm understanding either. And I think that's also translating also out into the public. And so as we think about, our public perception, I think about, the perception of the public with the department as well. And I am just so frustrated with where we are and thinking that we could be so much farther ahead. And at the very least, we can be in the room. It makes no sense that the department would think, oh, we're gonna go ahead and make this, and then, we'll talk to everybody about it later. No. At that point, I don't think you see us for what we really are. We don't see us as a part of the entire process. And so I think from the jump, the department has to understand that we are being very kind. A lot of my colleagues are being very, very kind. We're making requests and general asks. I am saying that, honestly, from me at least, is a demand that we need to be in those rooms as a sign of respect, not just to the body and to the office, but to the people themselves. Because that's what the people voted for this office and for this board to do.
I could respond to that. I definitely thank you for your concerns and for your comments. I understand where you're coming from. I think there's a misconception, though, and I think I just want to make this clear, is that the chief has, the chief is treating this board like it's not important. And that's what I think that everybody makes it out to be. And I just want to be very clear that the chief has gone above and beyond what any MOU has put out there. He's gone above and beyond requests that he's legally or that he has any true obligation to fulfill. He has a liaison he's named me. He didn't have to do that. That's not something that is mandated by MOU or by law. He has somebody here every meeting to make sure that you have your questions answered. All of the requests that you've had, just about all of the requests you've had, no matter how thorough, how in-depth they are, he has made an effort to make sure that we fulfilled things that he doesn't have to do. And I think that's where I think people need to understand, is that the community needs to understand that he's not obligated to do these things. He's doing them because he wants to have a good relationship with the board. He does these by sending somebody here to make sure that somebody is here to be able to answer those concerns, to be able to get that information and get it back to him, and so that we can get information. This information that today, information that has to do with body-worn camera footage, information that has to do with our hiring practices. All these things are very important. There are things that the chief has gone out of his way to make sure that you have this information. That is not something that he is mandated or obligated to do. He's doing it because he wants to continue to move forward. He's changed the MOU. This is not something he had to do, but this is something he wanted to, because he has consistently said, I want to make sure that that we do not put any stumbling blocks, any roadblocks to the COB, to make sure that they're able to do their job. I think this is from the very beginning. He has done everything he can to make sure that he works well with the COB, with the board. Now, is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. There's going to be things that we may not all agree with. He may do things that you don't agree with, and vice versa. But he has definitely gone above and beyond anything that has been asked of him by law, by MOU, by anything else. He's going out because he cares about the community. He wants to make sure that you are able to do your job without us getting in the way. Anytime that there's any issues that you have, information that you need, we're working our butts off to get it for you. And I think, it may not be the perfect timing because we have other jobs that we have to do, but we're trying to get all the information that we can. Information that was requested regarding the caseload of detectives. That's not something that you can just go in and punch in a couple of numbers and comes out. That takes a lot of work that's outside of normal duties. And we're doing that because we know that it's important to you and it's important to the community, and we want to give you what you need. But again, it's very frustrating when every time the chief or the department is brought up, it's coming in a negative light that we're not doing anything. And that is not true. We're doing a lot of things even behind the scenes that the community may not know about, but we're trying and we're working very hard. And it's not always easy, but we're doing our very best with what we have. We have issues with manpower. We're trying to get a lot of this information out, with very minimal people that are, out there doing their regular duties. And then we're trying to go out and try to get this information for y'all so that you have the information you need to make informed decisions on how you want to move forward on different things. But again, I just, being here as the liaison, I hear your concerns, and some of those concerns are valid, and I completely understand. But to say that the police department and the chief is not doing anything, I think is very disingenuous, because he is working very hard and he's doing a lot to try to get the board everything that they need and to try to serve the communities. I understand the situation with the LPRs. I understand your concerns with that. I understand what you're saying, 100%. We will bring that back to the chief's office, into the executive staff, and see how they want to move forward. But I guess to understand that we're not always going to agree. The department's not always going to agree with the board, and the board's not always going to agree with the department, and that's fine. We respectfully sometimes disagree, but we try to continue to respect each other and work together. And so I just want to say that, and I hope I didn't overstep my bounds, but I think it's very important to be able to at least get that out, because again, this is somebody who cares about the city and has done a lot to try to help change the way things were done before he got here, between the board and the police department. This wasn't always like this. And I know Dr. Hildreth was here, prior administrations. There wasn't a whole lot of a lot of getting along on some things. That's changed significantly, I believe. And I hope that you feel the same way. So,
If I may.
No, hold on.
yes, sir.
So, Commander Laura,
Yes, sir.
we take these interactions one at a time, okay? We cannot attest to the motivations and aspirations of the chief of police in terms of cooperating with us, not cooperating with us. We look at data. We look at data like the number of unsustained recommendations that we've made to the chief of police, which is off skew from metrics from other cities that have a citizens community oversight board. We take a look at the relationship between our budget and the MMPD's budget and how much support we're getting from the chief for that, which is less than, the standard across the nation. We take a look at a number of factors one at a time, but I want to close this discussion by reiterating my request that you let the chief know that this board is asking to be involved in the draft of the policy for LPRs. And we'll take that one, if you will, okay, as another, if you will, sign of interaction, engagement, and cooperation. I don't want to continue down this line, okay, of anecdotal evidence, okay? All right, we made a request. That's the bottom line of the request, and we would expect that the answer would be coming forthwith, okay? Anything else on that issue? I did see Board Member McCree, and then I'm going to let Executive Director Fitchett have the final say on that. Board Member McCree.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I kind of had 2 points, now that we've opened up a new lane of discussion. And so thank you for coming to speak with us tonight. But I do want to open my statement by saying that us being all members who are engaged in community, all members who are in close contact in different sectors and in different ways with community, when we address issues here about public perception, what the atmosphere is surrounding engagement with the board and the police department, it oftentimes comes from a place of being in connection with the community, not necessarily a personal opinion. And so I do understand that on your end and on the department's end, it can be very frustrating when you all may seem to be doing all that you can and there's no agreement. But I want to be very clear that it is the same urgency that helped to found this board that continues the conversation around folks' lack of enthusiasm and lack of trust in not only our board because nothing seems to be getting done, but their lack of trust in the department. So I wanted to make that very clear that at least on my end, I can only speak for myself and in private conversations I've had with other board members. These are not personal attacks on the department. These are, us reflecting the comments and the feelings of the members who we represent. So I want to start there. Secondly, we've had this discussion very well thought out. And even a policy proposal, I believe, Mr. Crowley, you can correct me if I'm wrong, where we looked at 4 proposals that would go between us and the police department. In that proposal that Mr. Crowley put forth, he looked at police departments and the relationships between their citizens oversight boards all across the country, the response rates that they were getting from the chief, and then base language that we should be able to use in comparison with the police department in order to try to close the gap on the approval ratings from the chief. And so I want to update on where we are with that. Maybe just from my recollection, I don't remember where we are on that, but for public knowledge, given the conversation, I would like an update on that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, finally, on this topic, you're going to defer, she yields. All right, Board Member Goddard, you had a second question regarding the report?
Whatever that was a lot less important than what we just discussed, so I will defer that as well. I do know what it was. It's not as important. It doesn't warrant time at this point.
Thank you, Commander Laura. Next item on the agenda is the proposed resolution reports. Director Fitchett.
All
right, thank you. We're going to talk about complaint CC 2021-012.
For the purposes of the public, I want you guys to know when we talk about PRs, we're actually talking about cases, complaints that were brought to us, and our proposed resolution. I apologize, Director Fisher, for interrupting you.
This is case number CC 2021-012. The allegations are obstruction of rights, discourtesy, discrimination, and conduct unbecoming. On March 23rd, 2021, the complainant reported to the Metro Nashville Community Oversight that on March the 8th, an employee with the police department was rude, used an aggressive tone toward her, and that he did not use, an aggressive tone that he used towards her that he did not use towards her neighbors who were of a different race, that he kicked her property and detained her in violation of her rights. The facts of the case is on March 8th, 2021, she called the police on her. The complainant had the police called on her and her complainant's son by her neighbors. The complainant and her complainant's son, they're black, whereas the two neighbors are white. Officer 1 and Officer 2 arrived in response to the neighbor's call. Officer 1 is a white man and Officer 2 is a black man. Officer 1 is the subject of this complaint. When Officer 1 arrived, he went directly over and began to speak to the neighbors, and Officer 2 began to speak to the complainant. At some point in his very first interaction with with the neighbors, Officer 1 made knowledge of his name. He said, "Hey, I'm Officer such and such, and just so you know, I do have my body camera on." Okay. And then he completes his conversation with the neighbors, which is 7 minutes and 51 seconds without any issues. But in contrast, when he speaks with the complainant for the first time, he doesn't introduce himself or announce that he's wearing a body-worn camera. He's also observed by the complaining putting his foot in a group of her flowers on her property, and she begins to ask him why he did that. He says, "I didn't put my foot on your flowers. I put it on a stake that was done by the surveyors that shows the property line." And there's this back and forth conversation regarding him, putting his foot in her flowers. And so they go back and forth with that. And then at some point, he jumps from that, discussing his foot in the plants, to asking for her identification. And he says, "That's not your plant. Do you have an ID? I can add you to the report." And then he begins to raise his voice. And he says to her, he wants her ID. At this point, he has been speaking and talking to her for less than 1 minute. He says to her, "Okay, well, you guys can go to court over the property line that's clearly marked." And she says, "I know where my property line is, sir. I'm just frustrated." Then he asked again for the second time, "Do you have your ID?" And he asked for it without justification. And the third time he asked, "Ma'am, do you have your ID on you?" After her response was, "They're wasting tax dollars' money to bring y'all out here." This time he claps his hands in the air in front of him for emphasis. And then on a fourth time, he says, "Can I get your ID?" And he again claps his hand for the second time. And she responds, "No, you cannot." So this goes on, this conversation about stakes and about property lines. And then about the fifth time, he demands for the fifth time, "Ma'am, I do need your ID because you're going to be a part of this report." And then she says, "Well, I'm talking to this other officer now." And then he says, "Well, give it to him." So this is the sixth time that he's asked her for her ID, and she has no legal obligation to do so. He goes back over to the neighbors, and then he says, "Have any of you had previous reports mentioned that the complainant being harassing?" And they respond in a negative. And then he tells them, "You're going to have to go to court because unfortunately it's a civil thing. So I can't really, do much," or he doesn't say that. He kind of just trails off. And one of the neighbors asked him, "Can you get her for harassing?" And he says, so I can write up a report for harassment right now, but if you've never documented her harassing before, so I can show it's a reoccurring thing, we can document it for sure and we can start that process. That's where we are right now. And then there's no basis to this arrest, to arrest a complainant for harassing. He walks back to the complainant and he begins moving her trash cans around. And then he asks, have you given him your ID yet? Can you give me your ID? You're being detained until you give me your ID. And the complainant says, I'm not being detained. And he says, oh, he raised his voice, you're being detained now. It's not a choice, you're detained. And she says, for what? And he says, first of all, for harassment at this point, because you're arguing with me over property line. She says, I'm not arguing with you. He says, you're involved in an investigation. And she says, I'm not involved in it. He says, yes, you are. And so she finally hands over her identification to him, although she's not required to do so. And then when her son arrives, the complainant tells her son that the officer had a nasty attitude and detained her. And he says, a detainer is an arrest. Let me explain. They're two different things. I said you're being detained until you give me your ID. I never mentioned that you're going to jail. So ultimately, Officer 1 leaves after instructing the complainant that neighbors have advised her not to come onto their property. And if she did so, the officer could arrest her. Then she asked a very similar question, that if they trespassed on her property, what would happen? And he told her that she would have to go to civil court. So the discussion, this is about two things. It is about the obstruction of the complainant's rights. It's also about discourtesy, and it's also about conduct that's unbecoming. And so I wanted to, before I went on, I wanted to ask Mr. Yoon, Attorney Yoon, to talk a little bit about the obstruction piece and why this would be considered obstruction.
I'm an attorney, and I was not given pre-notice, so I don't know how to be brief. I'm going to try, and I'm going to try to not talk like an attorney. Obstruction of rights. We all have the right to be free of unlawful search and seizure. Here, we're talking about a seizure. When you are asked for your ID by a police officer, that is a seizure. Whether it's unlawful or not really depends, and that sucks. And it's confusing, and police officers should know this. When a police officer asks for your ID, it can be considered consensual. Most people think you have to comply with that request, and sometimes you do. If you are being suspected of wrongdoing, you have to give your ID. If they have reasonable suspicion that you've committed some criminal act, you have to give your ID. How do you know when you're being consensually requested for your ID or when you are being told you have to give your ID and you're going to go to jail if you don't? Well, you have to ask them. Members of the public, you have to ask the police officer, am I being detained? Do I have to give you my ID? Why do I have to give you my ID? You're allowed to ask it. I cannot vouch for what the police officer will or will not do after that point. But you should all ask. And if they say you have to give your ID, you may not have to, but you should probably try to do that based on the history of this country. In this matter, he asked many, many, many times, give me your ID, give my partner ID. You're being detained if you don't give me your ID. I think any rational observer for that is going to believe, if I don't give you my ID, I might go to jail. That's for the obstruction of rights violation.
Thank you. So in conclusion, I found by the preponderance of evidence review that the allegations against Officer 1, obstruction of rights, conduct unbecoming, and discourtesy are sustained. As to the allegation of discrimination, although it's evident that Officer 1's treatment toward the complainant is not the same as his treatment toward her neighbors who are of a different race, we still could not, I was unable to attribute a discriminatory intent based solely on his actions. So that allegation is not sustained. Obstruction of rights is a Category B offense, the first offense of which is typically disciplined between 8 and 13 days suspension. Discourtesy is a Category F offense, of which is typically disciplined with a formal counseling or an oral reprimand. Discipline for conduct unbecoming varies by the severity of violation. After review of Officer 1's disciplinary file, he has no relevant disciplinary history. And so my recommendation is that he gets a 10-day suspension for obstruction of rights, a formal counseling for discourtesy, and a written reprimand as a Category E violation for conduct unbecoming. And that concludes my report, and I'll take any questions.
Before we get to board questions, Director Fitchard, I'd like for you to inform the public that in this case, and probably in a lot of different cases, about the information that you reviewed in to get to the finding of facts. So I'm going to direct you to page 3 of 7. And it's for the public's notice so that they'll understand what information you reviewed prior to arriving at your recommendation.
So what was reviewed was the investigative report, the complaint. Body worn camera footage, in-car camera footage, emergency call center communications, the CAD report, and the incident report.
Thank you. Comments, members of the board? Board Member Goddard.
A question and a comment. Question to Executive Director Fitchard. Do we know if the Police Internal Investigative Unit, OPA, has looked at this case and made any findings, or whether the chief has actually taken any action?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Comment is just,
Oh,
We did learn that the OPA was contacted by the complainant. The officer confirmed that. The OPA declined to interview anyone. They
Okay.
said they looked at the body worn camera, decided he did not commit any violation, and when we requested a written report of the OPA investigation, they said there was none. But there was an email exchange to the officer that said, you're being cleared of any wrongdoing. We did get this complaint about you. We think you did nothing wrong.
all right. And second, I'd like to compliment Mr. Yoon on his summary of the law around asking for a driver's license. And in a lot of cases, it is, did someone reasonably believe that they were detained? Here, we don't have that question. The officer stated, and back up, I read the full investigative report. The officer stated, you are detained until you give me your license. So that, there's not any, that's my read, if you agree. Okay.
Board Member Brown.
I would disagree a little bit with the evaluation. I don't think simply asking for a driver's license constitutes a seizure. I agree with Mr. Goddard that clearly it went beyond that, and I think the case law is clear. There is a violation when you tell someone they're detained until it. I don't think, though, just simply asking is enough to conclude that there's a violation, but this case goes beyond that. The other question I've really got goes to a problem I've raised over a number of years. This complaint was filed in April. It's one witness against one officer, and we're, 20 months in getting a report out. I'd like to know why this case took so long, because that's causing a problem for a lack of confidence by the public in this board, because we're taking 20 months on a one officer, one complaint case. And I realize we've had COVID, and I realize we've had some staff shortages, but this one just seems clearly excessive in delay. And the problem is, it may be that OPA has entered a finding of no violation, and our recommendations are going to be useless.
Director Fitchard.
Yeah, I don't have a real good explanation for you for that. I will tell you that OPA did not do a complete investigation on this. So hopefully we'll be able to make our findings and present this case because there isn't a complete investigation file.
I would like to have some explanation in this case, and frankly, the next one, which is almost similar. It's a one officer, one complaint, and it's, again, close to 20 months, as to why these took so long. I don't necessarily disagree with the recommendation. I think there was a clear violation of the law by telling the individual she was detained until she produced her driver's license. And so I don't disagree with the recommendation, but I just have a concern that the board's shooting itself in the foot with these long delays on getting these reports to the board.
Appreciate
Anything
that
further?
comment. No.
Board Member Holloway.
Well, it may have taken, the amount of time, but you wouldn't be right when you do it. You talk about the number of staff you have. If you want to speed up the process, give them some more people to work with. That's number one. And OPA reviewed it, and they couldn't find anything. Did they put it in writing? You know, that's, you know, you put it in writing, you say, well, founded, unfounded, or whatever, you know, so I have a problem with OPA. Like I said, once again, they need to clean house.
Attorney Yoon.
I heard a question in Member Brown's comments, and I can respond to some of them. One of them is that the complainant in this case did in fact hand over her ID. It wasn't just that she was asked. She also did end up giving her ID. It was held for a period of time so that the police officers could run an investigation. I think that further confirms the detainer occurred versus if it was just the ask. I'll also mention that when asked by the complainant, the officer, about why I'm being, you know, investigated or why is my ID being made, he said, well, it's for harassment at this point because you're arguing with me. And later, when asked by the investigator specifically about that statement, during the MNCO interview, the officer responded, poor choice of words. Those further, I think, affirm in, I think, the reviewers' minds that this was not the basis for the stop. One thing that we looked into, but the MNPD policy is incomplete. It mentions false statements in the MNPD policy. False statements is specifically with regard to sworn statements under oath. Obviously, no one can argue that he was under oath at the time that he said this to the complainant, or that may have been a sustained finding as well.
I'm wondering if it's possible to have the investigators in the room when we're reviewing their PRRs. I want answers. I'm not going to just let that go in terms of, you know, where we are and where we need to be in terms of timing. So I would like to think that in some way or another, you know, we want to get down to the point of accountability here. And I know that that works its way up to the executive director and to this board. But for full information, I'd really like to have them sitting in the room.
Yeah, I did ask some of them to come tonight, but the two that these were related to were, one is ill, one is out on extended leave. So that is a process and something that we're going to implement. And now that we have an assistant director, we'll be able to make certain that that we have some answers and some accountability.
Board Member Hildreth.
Thank you, Chair. Following from that, I'm wondering if you would accept as an amended thought that there be a standard portion of the PRRs are so beautifully structured now that we have a rhythm. We can go in and find certain information. There might be a block that talks about time delay, since we know they're all delayed right now. Like, we looked at this, how long did it take this PRR to come? It was 20 months. You know, were there any reasons for this delay that the director can do? That suggestion accomplishes a couple of things. It gives the public and the board sort of an absolute sense of accountability of without having to ask a question. We know we're going to look at the time. It also reinforces the director's responsibility to run her shop and the board's responsibility to hold the director accountable for running her shop. I'm a little bit reluctant to ask employees to come here and speak or not speak directly about some things that may be internal, but I think there is every right and responsibility for us to have frank conversation with the director and expect a frank and transparent answer.
Yeah, I don't have when I was talking about bringing the investigators, it was about asking questions related to the report, not about the timeliness of the report. That's why they have supervisors. And my response to that is you can hold me accountable all day long. There was some processes in place that caused these to be delayed. And when you're working with only 2 investigators and you're getting in 30 and 60 a year, you're going to have delays. And so I take full responsibility for what I can take responsibility for. I will not take responsibility for what was happening during the beginning of the process of us moving forward in this work that we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And so that's kind of the clarification that we're looking for, because here's the thing. If this is written in the block regularly, then one of 2 things happen. We either take accountability for or if we're now documenting and generating data of a pattern of delay that we can clearly link to under-resourcing, understaffing, et cetera, then there's a clear correlation. You see where we're going? Well, look how long it takes. Well, look how few resources we have. You do the math. Does that make sense? So that was kind of where I was going with that. And Mr. Chair, I wasn't quite sure if it was about having them here for answering that question or clarifying information. So I just hope that my clarification is accepted. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of, I've been on board, we've been on board, and, you know, the city manager's in the room, but I've got the finance director and the director of public works in the room, and, you know, to answer, you know, this job and specific questions. That's kind of where I'm coming from. But you're absolutely right. The accountability does lie at the executive directors. And I would like to think that an instruction to add that block would be sufficient for us to get that going forward. Let's do that. Let's have our investigators account for the time that it takes, particularly for those that are delayed. I don't know the language. I think everybody knows what I'm trying to say, okay? All right. For those that are beyond a reasonable period, we in fact, for all of them.
Quick clarification. So I don't remember what it was. It feels like months ago when we were beginning to look at the delays in the PRRs, and we're talking about catching up. I remember the question being asked, what do we think an optimal time is? You know, is it 30, 60, 90, 120 days? So that part of the response is if it goes over what staff defines as optimal, then, you know, what's the extraordinary circumstance explanation here?
Yeah, and I'm going to shy away from coming up with that number here right this moment.
No. That was, you said what I said, staff. We're always talking about data-driven
Right.
here, data-informed,
Absolutely.
right? When we're doing new things, we don't know how long a new thing takes. But now that we're starting to have some experience, and we're asking the staff to lead us in that identification.
Agreed. So the block would be reason for delay, if any. Reason for delay, if any, is the block. Okay? Is that good? All right, thank you very much. Back to the PR. Judge Brown, you had comments?
No, I was just going to comment that I think one of the first things I did when I came on the board was request us to get a 6-month aging report. And frankly, I think that's kind of, we haven't been getting them and it hadn't had much detail, but that's frankly where we should be getting explanations for why cases are taking more than 6 months. And we've had that as a policy for a year and a half. And the report's pretty minimal.
Okay. Was that something that was voted by the board?
Yes.
So, okay.
I
hold on.
send a report every month, the investigation agent
Yeah, the
report. It
agent
may not
report
be
is in
very
there.
specific for 6 months, but it's sent with all board documents every
Okay.
month.
What we'll do from this point is, again, reasons for delay, if any, and we're going to acknowledge, you know, the previous board motion as far as where we'll consider it a variance, if you will, for the purposes of the report only. How about that? Anything further?
No, none of that. That was answered.
Yeah. Okay, on the case, anything further? Okay. I'd just like to say there's certain things that that you can only glean by reviewing the evidence, the body worn camera and the things that our investigators and our staff, the things they do. I mean, you get intonation, you get tone, you get aggression, you get, and I want you to know that the points that are a part of the finding of fact reflect that part of the investigation. Now, having said that, I certainly think that this behavior and conduct does require some type of recommended discipline. I'm not going to usurp the responsibility of this board by going any further than that, but at some point, I'm going to ask you if you're ready for the question, okay, as to whether or not to adopt the recommendation. So is there any further discussion prior to the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the recommendation made by the executive director in this particular case, let it be known by the sign aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next case.
Point of order.
Point of order.
We reserve public comment for subjects of the complaint. There is somebody here who was the subject of that complaint.
Of this particular complaint.
Yes. So you can do it after the next report, or you can do it now.
Okay. Let's have it now. If you are here to speak on that, please do come forward and state your name.
My name is Pamela Adams, and I am the person that was disrespected, was afraid that if I did not give my license, I was going to be arrested. And with some jobs, if you have a record or if you've been in some kind of altercation or what have you, you could possibly lose your job. So with that being said, I didn't know what to do because I didn't feel like I was being heard. I tried to talk to Officer 2, who stated just do what he say or just, comply, give me your license. And I did that out of fear. Now, not only that, I felt like when he kicked my flower, it has yet to grow back. You have the green stems, but you do not have the flower. So it was just blatantly disrespect for what I feel as to me being able to explain, me being the neighbor I've been in that particular house since May of 2000 with not an issue with any neighbor in that neighborhood. And for them to move here in 2015 from New York and get mad because my son was warming up his diesel truck, filed all of these codes complaints if he has a flat tire, and said that we need to move. And I'm like, I'm not moving. I've been here since 2000. And so when I tried to explain this to the officer of the different harassments coming, even down to the husband defacing my fence to attach that my son warming up his diesel truck disturbs them. However, along with this letter, and I did turn all of that in, it says that you're supposed to warm a diesel truck. So with that being said, I felt like the officer, I know where my property line is. And of course, my neighbors did, and I still have those pictures that they don't know that I have from 2018 when they tried this once before. But this time they had an officer to go along with them. And with that being said, I didn't have a reason to explain, well, I know this, I know that, because why? In 2018, we had this for the same, you're in my yard. I have never been in that yard but once, and that was when I first moved there. The neighbor that lived there, he was old, his wife had passed, he had sit down on the porch and couldn't get up. Me being a nurse, he called and asked me if I could help him get off the porch. That's the only time out of 22 and a half years that I have been in that yard. They said that I throw chicken bones. I don't eat in my front yard. So it was a lot of stuff that was going on, and I'm like, trying to explain this, but it wasn't being heard. I even tried to file a report with the OPA, and he said he didn't see anything that the officer did was wrong and that they're trained to raise their voice. They didn't raise their voice with the neighbor, but he made sure that I understood what he was saying to me. And I felt like this little, I mean, I'm a citizen that has lived at that address, no complaints from the other neighbors. This is the only one. I go to work, I come home, and I tried to even explain that. I just came home from work. What's going on? I'm tired. I'm tired of every time I come home, it's something that they have said that we have done. And it's crazy to me. And recently, probably maybe 4 or 5 months ago, they tried to take my son to court. For what? And what the judge told him, and what I'm going to do when I get the funds, is to file a report for privacy invasion. They even put up a ring door camera, and it's only facing my yard, to prove that we eat in our yard. My son starts his diesel truck, just any little thing. If my son had a flat, the next day Coles was out there. I went to Aruba for my birthday. I get a call from the codes department saying that we have another complaint and your car is parked in your yard. And I was like, I'm in Aruba. They said, well, I need you to move it. And then finally I said, look, this is stuff that they do all the time. They'll call if he has a flat. They'll call if his car is parked in front of my house, just for anything. If I said, why? And it's like, well, whenever we get a call, we have to act upon it. But then when I'm being disrespected by the Metro Police Department, you don't act upon it. You say, oh, he didn't do anything wrong. He's trained to do that. Really? And he said, well, I'm going to recommend that nothing be done. And so that's when I called the Oversight Committee, because I'm like, so they're not going to be held responsible. They're not going to be, nothing will be done. They still have their job. They still getting their pay. They're going on about their day. And here I am living in fear, because the next time they call or they said that I was in their yard, then I'm going downtown. But then when I called, when I said he didn't know that I was at home. And I was sitting in my living room, and I had the window up, and I heard my trash can going back and forth. And I was like, okay. So I called Metro. What Metro say when they arrived? Oh, we have to see him. I said, but that's not what the officer told me. He told me if I go in his yard, I'm going to be arrested. He didn't have to see him, but I call you all because, again, he has come to my yard. And you say, oh, well, we have to see it. So I just feel like that what I say doesn't matter. I'm treated different, not just because of my race. It may be because of my race. Can't say. But I know that I'm given a different type of scenario versus my neighbor. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that they can move here anybody can move here. But you telling me you're from New York, this and that and the other, like trying to intimidate me. No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still at that address. I'm not moving. I don't bother anybody. So I just feel like that they should be held accountable, and it shouldn't be, oh, they're trained that way. So I should be trained to talk or protect myself when you come towards me in such a manner. What am I to do? He could say I did anything, and I felt like whether the camera was on or not, I feel like they would believe it. And so once again, you have done something to the officer. No, the officer has really it was just hurtful. And it's embarrassing because you have the neighbors looking. You have one neighbor that Officer 2 and I was talking to that realized she doesn't bother anybody in this neighborhood. But yet I was treated less than a person that lived in that neighborhood. So I just thank you all for taking the opportunity to hear my case. And not only that, whereas the OPA felt like, oh, well, just another day, and nothing needs to happen or take place. But at least you all took the time, whether it took 20 months or 10 months, you took the time out to hear my case and investigate. And I do understand that when they did first get the case, it was some issues that when they asked the police department for the footage. It took them a while to get them the footage. So it's a lot of things that take place, and I do understand that, but I am appreciative.
Thank you. Next case on the agenda is 2021-016, Director Fitcher.
This is case number CC 2021-016. The allegations are discourtesy, deficient performance of duties, and conduct unbecoming. On April 2nd, 2021, the complainant reported to the Metro National Community Oversight that on March 25th on Marina Street near McFerrin Park, the complainant saw a woman who reported to her that she had been a victim of a sexual assault. The woman had already called 911 when the complainant made the initial contact, but the woman was having difficulty describing her location to the person on the phone. The complainant provided that info to the 911 operator and waited for officers to arrive. The complainant filed her complaint against Officer 1, who was the first officer on the scene. The complainant felt Officer 1 was discourteous, unprofessional, and lacked the skill set to deal with a victim who had experienced trauma. Specifically, the complainant stated she watched Officer 1 try to walk the victim from the back seat of the police car to the ambulance, but she collapsed, and he proceeded to pick her up by her armpits and carry and drag her to the side of the ambulance, where she collapsed on the steps. Additionally, the complainant reported that when the complainant asked to speak to Officer 1 approached her and said, "What do you want?" The complainant said that when she restated an earlier question about whether the victim would receive support from an advocate at the hospital, Officer 1 cut her off and said, "We need to get a statement," but she's being very uncooperative. The complainant reported saying she has been raped, she is in shock, and the complainant says that the officer gave her an angry look and said she's probably on something. The complainant said when she responded, even if she is, it doesn't mean that she wasn't raped. This seemed to upset the officer from her perspective, and the complainant said that when she asked again about an advocate or a crisis counselor, the officer said angrily, "We are trying to do our jobs here. When we're done, she can get any kind of counseling that she wants." According to the complainant, she replied, if she has support, she can help law enforcement do their jobs by giving a more coherent statement. And at that point, Officer 1, in her perspective, appeared to become extremely angry with her, walked up and stood very close to her and snapped, "I know how to do my job, miss." During this process, as we watched the videotape, the officers heard numerous times saying that the victim of this assault was difficult and that it was frustrating to talk to her. He characterized her as not being very cooperative, not being forthcoming. The MNCO investigator asked the officer about the appropriateness of calling the victim difficult to other medical personnel while the victim could still hear him. He stated he wasn't intending to speak down. He was letting them know that he was having a difficult time with her. The officer, on multiple occasions, continued to say that she was being difficult. And then at some point, he says that she was kind of frustrating, talking about the complainant, that she was frustrating when she tried to interject because she was trying to tell him how to do his job. She was trained in working with rape and crisis victims, and that was her profession. And so she took ownership of that and tried to assist as much as she could. And so the discussion and analysis is that it was clear that Officer 1 was having difficulty communicating and understanding the statements of the victim. He had multiple interactions with her, and according to the complainant, he lacked the type of training that would have been conducive to collecting a coherent narrative. He acknowledged being frustrated as he relayed information to other officers, his supervising sergeant, his medical personnel, and the detective from the sex crimes unit, as well as during his MNCO interview. His characterization of the victim was that she was difficult and not forthcoming. And that was, I think, troubling to all of us that watched the video. And then at some point, while they're at the hospital, he says to I will note, okay, so I will note that he asked, did he actually rape you, when he interrupted her twice to tell her to listen to him and could conduct the interviews in the middle of a busy hallway of the hospital with multiple officers and medical personnel coming and going. And so this all was really concerning. I will get to the conclusion. The executive director finds by the preponderance of evidence reviewed by the allegations of discourtesy and conduct unbecoming, they are sustained. The allegation of deficient performance of duties is not sustained. My recommendation, because this discourtesy is a category F violation, a first offense of which is generally disciplined with formal counseling or an oral reprimand. Conduct unbecoming is the category varies by severity of the offense. Officer 1 had no relevant disciplinary history. I recommend a formal counseling for the discourtesy violation and 4-day suspension for the conduct unbecoming as a category D violation. I will tell you that this was very concerning to me. It goes back to the fact that we do not have a sexual assault policy specifically, and that I wanted to give you opportunity to discuss this. So I'm going to conclude at this point.
I'll ask for board members who'd like to speak on the issue. Board Member Haddock.
So what we're saying here is that someone can be raped and then ridiculed, right? That's what it appears to read as. And if that is the case, then we probably need to speed up our sexual misconduct report and the engagement that we had last week at the meeting when the person who headed that sexual assault organization came to give us that review. This is very, you don't talk about disheartening to be ridiculed on the scene, and then it kind of continues at the hospital. Is there anything other than the 4-day suspension and this discourtesy and conduct unbecoming being sustained, and our recommendations that can be done a little faster? Because it going at this rate, it appears that women will not receive, or men will not receive the support that they deserve and that they need in a very critical manner. Director Fisher, do you know if, other than the recommendations and the report that we will provide, what can be done?
Well, with the current, it's up there to the disciplinary grid. It says that the category D is, conduct unbecoming, the category varies by the severity of the offense. And so and I did have this conversation with Attorney Yoon, because I was actually really perplexed at what I was watching myself and what I was hearing from this officer and how we discipline in this particular, for this particular case, because they don't have any policies related to conduct and how they should proceed with any type of sexual assault investigations. It was very hard to determine what kind of discipline in regards to, like, do we give additional counseling? Do we do some in-service training? And so, I mean, his behavior was, of course, you know, what I just said, it was very, it was just startling, and I think that, you know, his response would be like, I was just trying to get the information so I could get this done and get this done, but not having any trauma-informed, lens. Also not thinking of the care of the woman. I wasn't able to really determine whether or not there was any biases or any of that, just based on what we were listening to. It was, it was just a very troubling situation that I saw. So based on that, I mean, the board has the opportunity to change the category. Is that correct, Attorney Yoon?
That's correct, and I won't say that there's not any written policies, but similar to the sexual misconduct seminar that you heard, the policies that are written appear both insufficient and so loose as to be any officer who can justify his actions or her actions is not going to be found in violation of that policy. When we see the harassment policy regarding, that the chief of police council puts out, it's over almost 100 pages in length with grievances and conduct investigations and not whistleblower, retaliation protection. Whereas when we look at the MMPD policy, it's a little bit more scattershot. It's harassment is in the same milieu as sexual orientation and gender and religious discrimination, and not a lot of depth and details. So there are policies, and he did appear to follow, according to the written policy, contact the sex crimes unit, tell them what's going on, get an interview, do it out of the presence of the public, but medical personnel takes priority.
I saw the board member Nguyen and then Holloway and Turner. Board member Nguyen.
Chair, I have comment on this, but I just heard about 5 gunshots outside the building, and Commander Laura is watching the back door. I don't we want to check with him to find out if there's a safety issue for us? You heard him as well? You heard the gunshots as well? No. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I saw.
Sorry. So I did have a couple of things. Last week, we discussed the lack of a sexual misconduct policy, which usually governs the behavior and the prevention of sexual misconduct committed by officers against family members of the general public. That's one thing. This is something a little different. We talked about this before in past complaints, and it's a common mistake made by officers, and it's behavior that, has to be corrected. But because you're looking at performance here, this is what this officer, because you say, Dan, you said that he did everything according to the protocol, existing protocol responding to sex crime. Is that right?
The policies that I saw, his behavior seemed consistent with, he also during his interview iterated, this is how I was trained to do it,
Right.
and I could see where he got that idea. And then some of the deviations seemed more related to conduct and discourtesy.
Right. So what this amounts to is, and I discussed this at the last meeting, trauma-informed, victim-centered approach to victims of any kind of crime, especially sex assault, is not just a catchphrase. It's basically changing a culture inside a police department where every first responder and every officer who's sworn and carries a gun has a possibility of being a first responder on a sex crime. Every one of them. It doesn't matter if it's the chief all the way down to the patrol officer on the night shift. In that training, you're taught that alcohol is a weapon of the rapist. Her condition, whether she was drugged, because there's a lot of drug-induced sex assault that goes on in the country, has nothing to do with anything other than his own personal observation. He shouldn't have said it, obviously, but if you're not trained to understand the words you use in a case like this can re-traumatize a victim. Second, traumatized victims in sex assault often don't follow up the second or third time because of the consequences of reporting a rape. The numbers are like 17% nationwide to police. It's one of the most underreported crimes, and because of that, being trained and trauma-informed is critical. So that officer represented every single officer in the police department that moment he started talking to the victim. The other part of this is preliminary interviews in trauma-informed aren't probing. That's not what they're for. They get the basic information so they can refer to a criminal investigator, EMS, whatever sexual crisis counsel they have available for the victim. That's provided immediately. That's part of it. So it looks like to me we've got another example of a, I don't want to call it a failure, but you rise to the level of your training no matter what the situation is. And he did exactly how he was trained. So I think we can't fault him per se, but we should fault the police department by not providing him the training of how to be a trauma-informed first responder. That's part of the training goes on all over the country, because in the end, what you want to do is obviously protect the victim, hold the offender accountable. But with trauma-informed, you have to take into account promoting the healing of the victim, and you don't want to make the victim worse than you were when you got there. So promoting healing is limiting your interview, not making judgments about whether the victim is drinking or not, because, those are the myths and misconceptions about rape. That's often what we hear. What was she wearing? What was she drinking? Where was she? What did she think was going to happen? All that plays into blaming the victim and not holding the offender accountable. So again, here we are, and I hope that the police department looks at this and says, this is a time when every single member, not specialist, every single member in the police department has got to be trained in trauma-informed victim interviewing techniques. And if they don't, we're going to continue to see this complaint because the officer said it. I did what I was trained to do. Thank you.
Before we move on, I wanted to make sure that Board Member Haddock received an answer to her question about the changing categories. It's a category D, is that correct?
Incorrect, I'm sorry. The recommendation from the director is that it's a category D, but the policy violation itself is an open-ended category. That means that you can select, based on the severity of the offense, which category it should belong in, all the way up to A, all the way down to F. So it is a choose your own adventure scenario. And then to respond to Board Member Nguyen, if I may, if you look through the body-worn camera footage, of which there's about an hour and a half, you get to see a trauma-informed medical professional conduct these same questions of the individual with a very different result and with a much different demeanor. And I did note the frustration could be attributable, probably was attributable to his lack of training. He's in the best job he possibly could have, but without the adequate resources, it is a frustrating experience. And I think some of that may have bled into his discourtesy and conduct unbecoming. We also see towards the end of the interaction, before he's talking about the sex crimes unit from the very beginning, and yet he still waits another hour or so while he's still trying to re-interview, re-question, at one point even asking, did you actually get raped? And that towards the end, the complainant ends up, or not the complainant, I'm sorry, the victim ends up saying, what are you going to do for me? Why should I continue with this questioning? Is this going to do any good for me? And he also characterizes that to his supervisors as, I think she's just interested in money and civil judgments and less about actually finding the culprit. So these type of judgments as an attorney, as somebody who did criminal defense practice, as somebody who knows what my colleagues across the way at the district attorney's office and the judges would want to see predisposed judgments about the character and biases of the victim prior to doing a full and complete interview.
Director Fisher, could you bring before this board next meeting for its consideration a recommendation from this board to the chief of police that every first responder be trained in trauma-informed response? And that'll be for this board to take a look at, deliberate on, and to take or not take an action. I saw Board Member Holloway.
Well, it is what it is. Whatever they said it is, you got to treat it like it is. If she says she was raped, then you got to take her word and go through the process where you've been trained to how to treat that, because a lot of times if you don't, then they may feel that I don't have any help, I don't have no support, and no mean no, and even though she might have been in a situation where she wasn't able to, maybe been over intoxicated, but still that's her body, and you don't take advantage of a human being. And so, and I'm not sure, but from my training, I think we was taught, and I don't know if it's continued being taught at the academy or not, that you have to treat it like they said it is, and if you need a specialist out there, you call someone. If not one available, there should be one on call. You can call from home. but we must do our best to try to take care of our citizens.
Thank you. Board Member Turner.
Thank you. I think the only question I had quickly was, and I might have missed it, what is the OPA's stance, or did they get, do a internal investigation? And if so, what was their findings?
Yeah, there wasn't an OPA investigation that, was there, I didn't see it in here, in my review.
I'm honestly, I'm drawing a blank at the moment. I will say that the complainant did tell us that she made an OPA complaint, and I'm fairly certain the investigator reached out to the OPA for that, but.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
So the complainant, she had conversation with them, and then there was something that happened with the conversation that she had with them, and so she decided to not file and go forward with it and decided to come to us. And I don't know what that was. She didn't really get into it, but she was a trauma-informed specialist in rape crises, and so, you know, I don't know if it was how they were responding to what she was saying or what, but she decided to not go through with a full investigation with them and come to us instead.
Further on this issue? Yes,
I just had one other thing, and I may have said it already, but forgive me if I'm chewing my cabbage twice. I just
we'll also excuse you for that visual.
I just think it's unfair to the rank and file officers first, that we correct them when they think they're doing exactly what they've been trained to do. The responsibility to train officers is with the supervisors of that officer. That's always the way it's been, it's the way it should be. It's called accountability. So and I disagree with the punishment in this recommendation, which I'll vote on, but it doesn't mean that I don't think it's wrong. I think it is wrong. The way she was treated, and, you know, asking someone, were you raped? I mean, again, all this is what we used to see 30, 40 years ago. It's old-style policing that shouldn't be tolerated, and the way you fix it is to train the officer. So I think the blame lays at the foot of the department who's responsible to train the officer. Thank you.
Board Member Goddard, and then Board Member Brown.
I encourage all board members to do this if you want, but you can ask Director Fitchard to send us, typically, Mr. Yoon's one that sends it, the full investigation reports on any of these. If you've got time to read these, they'll email them to you. You can read them before you come in. There's a lot more information in there. It's not as much as if you viewed the videos yourself. I don't mean to pretend that, but it's the full investigation report. It's usually about 20 pages or so on these things, maybe a little shorter. The investigator here laid out a lot of these same facts, all these same facts, and came to the conclusion there wasn't any violation of policy, I think for the exact reasons that Member Nguyen has described. I don't think he's right. I think there was a violation of policy, but in the context of what's the appropriate balance between enforcement against this individual officer versus coming down hard on the need for additional training, I just throw that out as another piece of information.
Board Member Brown.
Okay. I have somewhat of a problem with holding an officer responsible when there is not a clear policy. I think I agree with Member Nguyen and Goddard that it is something that needs to be addressed, and I think there's been a lot of water over the dam in getting better treatment for rape victims since this occurred. This occurred almost a year and a half ago, well, over a year and a half ago. And was the victim ever interviewed about the matter? I mean, this is a complaint by a trained professional that basically wasn't happy with how it was being handled. The real person that was perhaps not treated properly was the victim of it. I didn't see that there was an interview of the victim, or because it does appear that In fact, they did get her professional assistance once she got to the hospital. And I don't know what happened to the actual case, but I'm just concerned that we're holding the officer to a standard that wasn't clear at the time. I would more like to see it left as a category F, and that perhaps a reprimand on his treatment and a recommendation that the department develop clearer policy on dealing with victims to the extent they haven't. I was under the impression they had come up with some new policy on it, but to the extent they haven't, I certainly think that should be a recommendation. But I'm a little concerned with a suspension of this officer when we don't really not really find that he violated policy. I do think there's enough of a discourtesy to have a reprimand, and so that would be my thought, would be to leave it was a reprimand as a category F violation, and that the department be requested to develop better policy on dealing with victims.
Board Member Hildreth.
Thank you. I'm sitting here with the commentary from all of our members, including the new member who have not met yet, who properly, I think, starts where I want to start my comments, and that's with the woman who experienced this. And that said, I really need to go with Member Nguyen and Member Brown, and even to our dialogue earlier with the representative from the department who's here, to elevate this to the level of accountability that I believe this board was called to. And this was about systems and systems reform. This is wrong, and there needs to be accountability. And we need to strike where it hurts to get those who have the responsibility and authority and the power to change the systems to do that. I am not comfortable seeing a member of rank and file be singled out, discussed in public, and personally and only take a penalty while the supervisors and C-suites go free. That is not okay with me. I don't know about any of you, but I have been an undertrained underling before, sent out to do stuff that I wasn't quite ready to do, terrified, probably made a lot of mistakes, and folk got hurt by my lack of competence at that time. Do you understand what I'm saying here? So now, and I got one meeting left in me, so I gotta spend all my coins when I can. So I actually want to think out loud before I make a motion, because you know how we roll here. I am wondering what it would be like for me to make a motion to return this to MNCO staff with a recommendation that they sort of open a director-initiated, or maybe it's a new category, it's a board-initiated complaint. Yeah, let's call it a board-initiated complaint. I'm going out in a blaze of glory, y'all. So we want to return this to the MNCO staff with a kind of concomitant or embedded board-initiated complaint around the supervisors responsible for training and supervising this and all other line officers who are following established procedure that keeps bringing back to us examples of trauma-deformed performance. Because it hurts the officer and it hurts the citizen, which means it hurts us. And what we do is end up spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to do, this officer is not the problem here. The victim's pain is the problem, but it's not the officer. It's the system. And systems don't change until the pain of not doing so exceeds the pain of doing it. And I would like to see us make it very uncomfortable for the department not to do better here. Thank you. So I think that's my motion. Do you
If I
have to say it
may,
again?
if I may, before that second. Does what I requested the executive director to produce at our next meeting in any way accomplish that or conflict with that?
I think it's complimentary because you're asking for a general going forward.
Yeah.
I'm looking for someone to be on the hot seat in this situation. Who is the training officer? Who is the protocol? Who is the supervisor? And again, please understand that when we start going up against systems, I am not making an ad hominem attack against these individuals. First of all, I don't know who they are. And second of all, this is a chess game, all right? So I'm talking about pieces on a board. I actually want this case to go after the entities responsible for undertraining the officer who visited that harm on this woman.
Okay, so if I may, so it sounds like we're asking, that we're making a recommendation that the board not act on this particular PRR.
No, I'm asking for the action to be that we return it to the
Right,
staff.
and that as presented, and that it be returned to staff as, and have it investigated, if you will, and processed as a board-generated complaint, which I'm not sure there's such a thing, but that the subject of the complaint not be an individual officer, okay, but be the department?
No, whoever was responsible for supervising and training this officer.
Okay, this officer supervisor.
Yes, because I'm keeping it case specific.
Okay.
Because that's doing a different.
All right, I appreciate that clarification. Wow, where do we go from here? Okay, I got it. Attorney Yu.
So we actually have a little bit of precedence with this. We had a case whereby one detective was being investigated for deficient performance of duties and the like, and his explanation at the time was, my supervisor told me I couldn't do it. And then afterwards, I don't know if we're putting the cart before the horse, but I think it's public knowledge, yes, that they opened up a new unit to respond to cases like that. So that being aside, that was a unique situation because that case was in fact decided against the individual officer, and then we opened up a brand new investigation, but with the same case number, just a different B instead of a D versus a CC. So similarly, I'll just point out that we have a complainant who is not the victim, who felt that she was the victim of a different type of misconduct, discourtesy and conduct unbecoming. We inferred some discourtesy regarding the victim when she was called him difficult, and she actually made a statement when she heard him say that. She said, "You've never been raped. That's because you've never been raped." And then again, later on, we made another inference because she was not interviewed when she sort of discontinued her cooperation towards the end. So that being said, we had a finding of misconduct based on his conduct toward the reporting complainant, who was not the subject of the rape. And then so that to say, of the choices of remedies, you absolutely could accept, reject, return. You can also make a finding as it relates to the discourtesy and conduct unbecoming against the complainant, and also open up a board-initiated investigation into this officer, but really his trainers, perhaps the policy related to MOPD with regard to trauma-informed interviewing and when to report to a special investigations unit like the sex crimes unit, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's clear.
if we wanted to make a finding against the officer on behalf of the complainant as it relates to the discourtesy, and then return that portion of it related to conduct unbecoming in the form of a complaint from the board to the supervisor.
And that's what I was saying, that we have not done. We have not sort of divvied up the proposed resolution report into segments. I think we could look into it and we could see what the legality around it is. Again, we're unfortunately tied to a charter that delineates very specific things we can do, and then we try to go outside the box, which I am a big fan of. I'm a big fan of going outside the box. One of my colleagues talks about it's not hard to get outside the box, it's hard to stay outside the box. That's key to Haynes. But that being said, it gets us into a little bit of hot water legally speaking sometimes. So if we want to be like very straight by the book and free of sort of reproof by other entities who might misjudge what we were trying to do, we could go ahead and make a finding on this case and then do a board-initiated, director-initiated investigation into the subject matter that you're speaking to, but with the same case number, which is exactly what we did last time when we were trying to look at higher-up policies.
Okay. Board Member Brown.
I don't disagree with what our legal director says. My concern is we've got a complaint against a officer. And if we go this route of sending it back to the board, this thing's going to drag out for another year. It seems to me we have a responsibility to resolve it as to this officer. And I think Member Hildred has pointed out an excellent point that there's a broader picture, but I think the suggestion that we do that as a separate board-initiated or director-initiated investigation is a way to handle it, because that's going to take significant time. We need to resolve it as to this officer, which is what this complaint is. So my recommendation would be, rather than to return it to the staff, would be to modify it in this case to leave it as a category F and counseling for the discourtesy violation, but leave it as a category F with no suspension. That would be my recommendation, so we can conclude this case as to this officer and then open up a more focused investigation on why there wasn't better training.
Are you saying, I have a question for you. Are you saying, so category F is for the discourtesy, but there's also the conduct unbecoming. Are you saying do away with that one? That's the one that is attached to the suspension. There's two charges here, two allegations. Discourtesy, which is the category F violation, which is, the recommendation was for a formal counseling. That's for discourtesy. And then there's also the suspension, which was my recommendation was a 4-day suspension for the conduct unbecoming.
Yeah,
So you're saying do away with that?
I would drop the conduct unbecoming. I mean, it just doesn't seem that there's policy that supports that. I think the discourtesy is there and the reprimand is there, and then we open up a situation as to why there wasn't better training. But I think we need to resolve this as to this officer, given the fact that he certainly could have done it better. Don't get me wrong on that. But it just doesn't seem to me that there's sufficient grounds that he violated policy to support that portion of the recommendation. So my recommendation would be to make it the category F for the discourtesy with the reprimand, and that we open up a separate director investigation on why there is not better training and what that training should be.
And as a matter of process, we'll take that up and we'll poll the board members about what their druthers are as far as the individual charges are concerned. But deference belongs to Board Member Hildreth at this point, who was on the verge of making a motion, and I thought that maybe a little discussion would, she made a motion, but
No.
but it's pending a second.
So I made the motion, and I was going to say I would take a friendly amendment to clarify it. I'll just give a little more. When I made the motion to return, my thinking was, if we get traction on the training element, then maybe, kind of to use an analogy, the discipline the action against the individual officer would be dropped completely because we're doing justice. What I'm worried about by separating it out and just giving the officer something in going for, how can I say this? It feels like giving the officers something when we have all acknowledged that there's a bigger systemic issue, still has this person kind of taking the fall for a failure in a system, which can lead to frustration, that can lead to the unbecoming. You know, I mean, there's a cascade effect. And if we're really going after the system, then I was saying return it. And then when we come back and we have some systemic traction, then we won't do anything with this officer because everything else, you see where we're going? If we break it up right now and say, well, you know, that's going to be out there, let's just do something right now. I think that the discipline that the officer receives negatively affects the officer, but does not sufficiently honor the damage to the victim. So to me, it feels like the worst of both worlds. So it was sort of saying, let's kind of suspend what's happening. Yes, Judge Brown, it kicks it out, but it kicks it out into a maybe nothing happens on their record, which I think we have all been in these experiences in court where, you know, let's hold it in abeyance and see if it can kind of go forward. So that was the structure behind my motion. If the motion, if it doesn't get a second and you want it to fail, then we can come in with a second motion and you can, you know, have a different category, accept but modified, deal with the officer. Then I will make another motion to have a board initiated investigation into the lack of trauma-informed training.
Okay. All right, and so would you please restate your motion, please, if you can?
I was gonna say,
Oh, you've got to
we
be
need to be sure what the motion is.
Because I want to give you a second here,
I-
opportunity.
Okay.
I can
Yeah,
give it a shot.
please.
Okay, as best I recall, the motion was to return the recommendation to staff
Correct.
and to have it, at least for the unbecoming part, have that changed to a
Well,
board recommendation.
I can do this.
Go ahead.
We have 4 categories, sort of by statute in our rule. My motion is that we select number 4, return to MNCO staff.
Mhm.
And we're returning it with the direction that they now open a board-initiated investigation into the allegation of failure of training and supervision in this matter. And the motion is silent as to further action for the officer. That investigation has been done. This is going back. When it comes back here, that portion of the file can always come back. But my motion is to return to the staff for new investigation around training.
I'm going to ask if that is something that is proper based upon what we are presented with now.
You don't want to ask me that? No. I am an out-of-the-box thinker. I'm struggling to stay out of the box. Again, it's not, I think it's permissible, and I think that, I just like the question. My experience as, what is written in the 4 responses is to return for a further investigation. I think what's contemplated is clearly investigation into this matter. This fits within it, but we know that there's not going to be any further investigation into this officer. There is something that lives across the street in General Sessions Court called under advisement pleas. It's not quite legal. It's also something that a lot of judges do and a lot of attorneys ask for and get. And it's an uncomfortable feeling as somebody who represents individuals who, finding of guilt, waived all their rights to speedy trial and all of that. And then every now and again, the judges pulled the trigger and actually put them in jail and put a permanent conviction on their record. And then we would fight, well, that was an illegal plea to begin with. So all that to say, finality is something that this system values, and Speaking for both the subject officer and for the complainant, finality means something, that the uncertainty, even if we know what the result is supposed to be, just feels uncomfortable. So like I said, there is a remedy that can open up the investigation and kind of lets people go to bed at night knowing this investigation will be closed with regard to these specific allegations. If we want to return it in all of its form, which is what I would prefer, as opposed to trying to split it up after conferring with the research analyst, is proffer is the same. Return the full investigation into another subject matter. We absolutely can, it's proper, but I think it would also be more proper just to close this one and open up a new one.
I withdraw the motion.
That was a lawyer talking. I think I understand.
I withdraw the motion.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I saw Board Member
I'm
Turner.
not done, but
You're
I
not-
withdraw
no,
the
no, no.
motion.
All right, first, I'm sorry, I did see Board Member Goddard and then Board Member Turner, and then we're gonna try and make some sense out of this thing and move on. Go ahead.
I'll be a lawyer, but hopefully a little, something. Could we not send this back to investigate this officer's training, recognizing that if he has, we don't think so, if he has been trained a whole lot, then maybe he does warrant some greater action. If he has gotten the training we think he's gotten, then nothing or a category F would be there, and that gives us the legal basis then to keep the looking into what his supervisors trained him part of this investigation. Would that work for you?
With regard to the full investigation, including?
Yes.
That absolutely is again, proper and legally permissible.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Turner.
I'm sitting here, this is Dr. Hildreth, and even before you spoke, my mind is still focused on the victim. And I don't want to rush this particular case. I know it's systematic, and it is systematic. But just by glancing, I'm new to the board, so I didn't get a chance to fully look at and dive into this case. But just looking at it, it is blatant unprofessionalism. It's rude. It's harsh. Just from just reading it and listening to it. And I don't want us to rush on this case to really attack the system, the training that, and lack of, to the officers, in this situation, to really go after, Dr. Hildreth said, those entities and training officers and supervisors, and then on our end, and I don't know if we can do it again, same, because I'm new to the board, that to talk to the victim, I don't know if the victim is watching, the complainant is watching, of what we're really trying to attack, so that that person can understand that, looking at the categories, and it might not even be enough, if y'all understand what I'm trying to get to for this case, for the victim. But I hope whatever we decide, and whether we kick it, we take it, or we say it, to take it back or kick it back to the staff to, and open up a new investigation. But if we can, to really talk to the victim and let them know what we are really trying to accomplish, so they won't feel like nothing was done, because we really are attacking something bigger. And still, I do think that some type of punishment, because this is just purely unprofessional. I don't care who you are, it's just purely unprofessional. And so I did just want to say that in whatever we decide, to let them if we can, to definitely let the victim know, listen, this is what we're doing, what we're trying to do. And, if we can, to do that. I think we owe the victim that. that she can have at least some resolve, because again, looking at this, there's really no action that I would think suffice the victims to have some resolve, but whatever is decided, that she can at least know from this board, to have a conversation or sit down with her to say, this is what we're really trying to do. Whatever happens in the punishment to the officer, we're really trying to tackle. This won't ever happen again in the future. I'll leave my comments there.
So with that result in the recommendation that we return to staff, and that they convert it, for the lack of a better term, into a board-initiated complaint, and also instruct the executive director to be in touch with the complainant, and to let them know what the path forward is from this point on.
Point of order, Chair. I withdrew the motion, so there needs to be a motion for one of the 4 recommendations.
Yes.
Okay.
Trying
Okay.
But
So then
would
somebody
that
needs to-
have made sense, though? Basically, what I just said in the form of a motion?
No, well, I didn't know if that was a motion, because I'm also hearing that there are board members who want to go forward with some form of the punishment is what's there.
Absolutely.
And so I withdrawn all of the return to the MCO for,
Okay.
I am prepared to pursue that in a separate
Right.
portion.
Okay.
So this is an invitation, encouragement to the board members to go back on, and Board Member Turner? I mean, so do you accept the you can make a motion to accept the director's recommendation, or to go higher.
Yeah, but Board Member Hildreth, what I'm trying to do is to kind of reach a consensus based upon discussions that I've heard, right? And package it in such a way where it kind of addresses the issues that folks have kind of, put forward. I don't want to quash it by any
No,
means.
I'm going to come back and make that motion for the
Definitely,
board order.
if we actually vote on whether or not to accept the executive director's recommendation right now, and if we vote in the affirmative, then all the things that we've talked about, become a separate issue.
Right, and I'm going to come back and make that motion.
Okay? I'm procedurally a little concerned about that, but you know what? Let's give it a shot. Why don't we do that? Does everyone understand that we're about to vote on the executive director's recommendation?
And I just want to say one thing. Remember, this recommendation does not address the woman who was a victim of alleged sexual assault. This is only addressing the behavior that the officers, as they responded to the complainant and as they talked to the victim, but the victim did not take part in this complaint.
Okay, so first, let us deal with the executive director's recommendation. Okay? Attorney?
Right, because I noticed that at the last motion, I think it would be better if one board member made a motion, it was properly seconded, and then there could be discussion, but then all of the board makes a vote on that specific motion, which again, doesn't mean that another motion couldn't be made. I think that would be the cleaner way of doing it.
Okay.
And I think I will just clarify, because I think it was misstated. The third complaint against the officer of, conduct unbecoming, I'm sorry, let me go back. It was discourtesy, deficient performance of duties, and conduct unbecoming.
Right.
The conduct unbecoming was against the victim. And again, that was the question, no, you listened to me speaking over the victim. It was, did he actually rape you? That was again directed toward the victim. But the other two, one of them is sort of a non-victim societal crime, I guess you would say, deficient performance of duties. It wasn't sustained. And then the first one was as it related to the complainant who was not the victim. That was the discourtesy. And I get that they are very much overlapping and sound very similar, but discourtesy was specifically against the complainant for saying, for sort of getting angry at her for making the suggestions. The third one was towards the victim that was saying, no, you listen to me and you're being difficult, even though he characterized it a little bit differently. If that helps.
I was just saying that the victim she didn't make the complaint.
Yes.
Right.
the two different people.
All right, do we have a motion?
Brother Chair, if we reject, what happens?
If we reject the recommendation,
Correct.
then it dies, right? Yeah, it's over.
Okay.
Is there a motion on the executive director's report or recommendation? Board Member Holloway.
I make a motion that we accept, the director's, recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we accept the executive director's recommendation. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
We'll poll the board, so if you would help me out there, Mr. Goddard, as the secretary, please. Let us poll.
Mr. Holloway?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Ms. McCree.
I'm sorry, Ms. McCree?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I can't take it. Hattie, Ms. Hattie?
No.
Ms. Spencer?
Aye.
Ms. Hildred? Dr. Hildred?
Aye.
That me.
Chair?
I'm only in the case of a tie vote.
All right, I will vote no. 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 No.
No.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. All right, now as regards to this issue, is there a more systemic recommendation?
Can I do a motion or we got to do a recommendation?
No, it's a motion.
I want to make a motion that we return back to the staff, the MNCO staff.
Okay. Now that we have not accepted the recommendation, we basically rejected the recommendation. I don't see any other category. But now you're saying that we want to kind of modify that a little bit and return it. Does that help me here?
This is something that I was not part of the committee to name things. Reject doesn't mean reject. It's silly, but it means we are accepting the report to be finalized. We're just changing one of the conclusions or findings, but it finalizes the report and it's over and done with. Return keeps it open, and that's, I think, what it is you are trying to do. Not reject, but return the investigation. There hasn't been properly seconded yet, so that's still available. And then discussion can live amongst what the specificity of the investigation should be related to. I hope that's helpful. I'm not trying to be difficult.
Capture your intent in the spirit of it, but the form of, do you have a motion?
No, he just.
It's properly moved that it be returned for further investigation, and that's completely the right
Okay,
nomenclature.
for further investigation, that's the part that will be, is that.
Return to the MNCO staff for further investigation.
Okay, all right, is there a second?
I second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? Judge Brown.
We've rejected it. I would think a better procedure would be that having rejected this one, we close this one out and we open a new investigation, because we're wrapping ourselves around the axle on this one. And we did vote to reject the report. So I would move to amend the motion for the board to reopen an investigation of the procedure involved in this matter.
Attorney Yoon.
Y'all really want me to work, but I'm happy to do it. So a motion was made to accept and it failed to get the majority votes. A motion was not made to reject, and a motion to reject would have been to change a conclusion like, oh, we don't think any misconduct has occurred, or we think misconduct has occurred, but we want to change the recommendation. That's actually a motion to reject, but change the conclusion. So no motion has been made to reject, and no motion, even if you wanted it to be a rejection, has been made either. It was just a motion to accept the recommendations and findings of the director that failed to gain a majority vote. Every other motion is still available, including another motion to accept. But
You can accept a different punishment.
He made a motion, correct? Okay, to return.
Has it been seconded?
Yes. All right, so we're good. Okay, for further investigation, right? Any further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right, thank you. All right, look, time is fleeting. How, item, yeah, okay, hold on. Item number 11, has been pulled from the agenda, okay? Item number 10A and B, we can, kind of, get through, here, and, that'll wrap us up. Okay, Board Member Hildreth.
Thank you, Chair. In light of the foregoing discussion, both in this case and matters that have come before this board, I think maybe 2 or 3 months previous when we first began discussion around trauma-informed training, I would like to make the motion that we open a board-initiated complaint to investigate the investigate whether the current training protocols around specifically interviewing victims and witnesses in traumatic incidents sufficiently comply with national standards for trauma-informed investigation and questioning.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Is there discussion? All right, Board Member Nguyen.
So basically, Dr. Hill, you're asking for a bit of a patterns and practice investigation,
That part.
very similar to the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, who's presently investigating the Louisville Police Department for this very thing, and Baltimore, and Philadelphia, and New Orleans, and Puerto Rico, and Steubenville, Ohio, and all these other cities that have shown a pattern of practice of not understanding trauma, and have been found against and corrected it under federal decree. So it'd be interesting to see how this plays out. This is unusual for this board to do it. I think it's a proper way to use this board's power, actually. So thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next item, item number 10, we had requested from the MMPD some demographics on police academy candidates. I don't know if it's not really a good time for us to do that right now, given the situation. And so if there's no objection, we can table that?
Yes, and for next meeting.
Without objection? Without objection. The detective workload update, without objection?
Next meeting.
Without objection. All right, that takes us to the item number 12, mid-year budget report in January. We'd like to have a budget report that reflects the first 6 months. You know, probably can get with the finance department, budget department, and they can produce that for you. Okay, so we can see any variances. Okay, is there any new business? Any new business? Okay, would you like to make an announcement before we close up our December meeting, our last meeting of the month here? Executive Director Fitchard, I know that your staff has worked hard to prepare things for us here, so.
Yes, so we just wanted to make everyone aware that we have some light refreshments in the back for you. And we just wanted, like I said, once again, we all have worked really hard. It's been a tremendous year with lots of challenges. And I'm just very thankful that you all are continuing to hang with us for this length of time, for these very long meetings, but they have been very helpful. And I think it really shows the dedication that each of you have and the commitment to this work of oversight and accountability for our city. I don't think that any other city has the kind of love that we have and what we do. maybe I shouldn't say that, but other cities do work as hard, but not as hard as we've been working to try to make certain that we are addressing the needs of our community members. And as we heard from them today, I think that they are really, and the ones that have showed up do have confidence in the work that we're doing and respect the work that we're doing. And I'm very grateful for that, grateful for all of you and all that you do to, to pour into this community and to this board and to the staff. So thank you all. Thank you. All of our staff members are
Yeah,
here
we thank
too.
you and staff as well.
Thank you.
And Reverend Turner, I'm sorry if they didn't tell you this is a volunteer position, because they will be working you, okay? All right, motion to adjourn. Without objection, we're adjourned. Wow. Hey, what was that? What was that?